Hello and welcome to our beginner's guide to Valorant in 2022. We first made this guide a year and a half ago, but unsurprisingly, Valorant is a whole different game from back then, and as such, a new guide is much needed. So here it is. In this guide, we'll be covering all the essentials that every Valorant player must know in order to make a smooth transition into the game. So if you're a veteran player watching this thinking, but I already know most of these things, these are like the most important things you have to know in order to be good at Valorant. Well, yeah, that's kind of the point. But if you're an intermediate player wanting to freshen up on the basics or a new one wanting to learn the game, this guide is just perfect for you. So make sure to like and subscribe, and let's get right into it. The first thing we'll quickly go over is the game modes. The first two shown in the menu are unrated and competitive. Both of these two game modes are very similar, or essentially the same. The only difference being that the competitive will place you in a rank and cannot be played until you reach at least level 20, which will take quite a while. And in competitive, as this is a ranked and rated game mode, overtimes, which can happen if after 24 rounds no team has won, will be a bit longer in order to be more fair. But more about that and the game mode itself later. Generally, this is considered to be the main game mode of Valorant and is the normal way to play the game. They have a primary objective which depends on your side, and both of these have different objectives, which we'll talk about later. Both teams get 12 rounds on each side, or at least until one of the two teams wins 13 rounds total. The two sides are attacker and defender, which we'll go more in depth about in this mode later. Also in the lobby are two party game modes, one permanent, one being Spike Rush, and one being a rotating other game mode. Spike Rush is a faster variant of the normal game mode, with also a lot more chaotic aspects and wacky things happening all at once. Every attacker carries a spike, and orbs that have the potential to massively change the course of a round are spawned all over the map. People play this game mode to relax from the stress and pressure from normal games and play Valorant in a more chill setting. The other party game, like I mentioned, is rotational and changes over the course of the year. Although currently it is Escalation, that being a goofy deathmatch style party game where two teams compete to finish the arms race first. You'll start with standard guns like the Vandal and Phantom, but eventually you'll have to kill with Silver Shock Darts, Raise Boombots, and other chaos-inducing abilities. Perhaps it's not the best game mode to practice, but it sure as hell is fun. Also in the lobby are two other main game modes, that being Deathmatch and Custom Games. Deathmatch is basically a practice tool. If you die, you respawn in 1.5 seconds, and you can buy any gun you like at all times. There's no teams, and the first person to 40 kills wins. People use this to practice their gun skill, relax, or simply work on their mechanics like aim and movement. Custom games are another tool that you can use to practice on your own empty maps, but more often than not, it's used to play with and against friends, or to play 5v5 games team versus team. Lastly, to the left of the start button, there will always be a smaller gray button that allows you to enter the range, where you have a shooting range and two practice tools both for planting and defusing the spike. More about that later. So now that we've established the lobby, let's talk about the normal game mode and its objective. So in Valorant Ranked and Unrated, the goal is pretty simple and depends on your side. Generally, a round can be won in one of two ways, and you need 13 rounds total in order to win a game. Firstly, you can simply eliminate all 5 of your opponents as the game is played 5 versus 5. If your team is the last one standing without the other team having completed the objective beforehand, your team wins the round. If you're on the attacker team, your goal is to bring the spike, which can be picked up in spawn by a player at the start of the round to one of the bomb sites. Plant the spike there and let it explode. The defenders are trying to do the exact opposite, which is prevent the attackers from planting the spike, and otherwise defuse it before it explodes. If they manage to force the attackers to run out of time, which by the way is 1:40, the defenders also win. So yeah, pretty simple stuff. Two teams, one is trying to get onto a bomb site and plant the bomb, and the others are trying to prevent that. In order to balance the game, the attackers are spawned further away from the bomb sites, meaning that the defenders have the advantage of being able to hold their ground and set up for an inevitable attack, while attackers have the advantage of being able to bring bigger numbers to a site. There's multiple bomb sites, which all should be held by the defensive site, and that while the attackers know where they want to go and the defenders don't. Alright, so before you actually start playing games, there's a few more things we should discuss. That being the fundamentals, some rules of the game, how the economy works, how the different agents and roles they fill, and lastly the different maps. But before we do that, let's quickly go over our question of the day. Today's question being, when did you start playing Valorant? Personally for me, I started playing all the way back on the first day of beta, and I've been playing ever since. So what about you guys? When did you start? Make sure to comment when you started down below in the comment section. In order to defend or get onto these sites, 4 things are very important: aiming, crosshair placement, movement, and abilities. The first 3 we'll talk about now. Valorant is a tactical shooter, which makes not only tactics important, but also mostly shooting. In order to shoot straight and have success, these 3 concepts of aiming, crosshair placement, and movement are important. Aim is what everyone instantly thinks about right away when they think about shooters, and generally it's just about being able to place your crosshair on targets. In Valorant, that being enemies and enemy abilities. Aim is important because if your aim isn't very good, it's easy to lose duels against players that you may have even outplayed tactically. Aim can be practiced in a multitude of ways, the most effective one being using aim trainers like AimLab. But you can also use practice tools like the range or deathmatch. We won't talk about training your aim too much in this video as we only have so much time. But if you want to improve that specifically, we have plenty of guides on our channel. So simply subscribe to keep up to date and check out the rest of our channel for our aim guides. Crosshair placement is another super important concept, arguably even more important than aiming, as it helps lessen the need for raw aim in a major way. Arguing over which is pretty pointless, but the gist of it is you want both to be as best as possible. With great aim and bad crosshair placement, you'll get out-aimed still by people with great crosshair placement and average aim, and the other way around as well. A healthy mix of both is key. So what is it exactly? Well, crosshair placement is placing your crosshair tactically in order to minimize the amount of aiming you'll actually have to do. Basically, it's putting your crosshair wherever you expect your opponents to be so that if they're indeed there, you can simply click and you'll barely have to do any aiming at all. Crosshair placement is closely linked to map knowledge, so it isn't always easy for new players, but you can easily practice it in deathmatch and customs. Just keep your crosshair at head level and try to track walls and corners as best as you can. If you actively put effort into the skill, it really will come with time as soon as you get more used to where players can be. Aim at head level at all times, and perhaps even watch pros or better players. Last of the three is movement, and that's got everything to do with the fact that for the most part, you really can't run and shoot. Certainly there are a few guns that make that statement a bit debatable, but the best weapons are to be used shooting stationary, meaning that being able to control your movement and quickly stop when you want to shoot is most needed. Quickly stopping in order to shoot is a movement technique called counter-strafing. It gets its name from the players countering their strafe by strafing shortly in the opposite direction. If you're going forward, you can counter-strafe by quickly tapping S. If you're going left, you can do the same with D, and so on. This is a technique that's best to practice by buying a Vandal in the practice range and moving in between your shots versus bots. It's hard at first, but becomes second nature quite quickly as long as you put in some practice. And if you want more in-depth tips with improving any of your fundamentals or exploring what each agent has to offer at the highest levels, make sure to come visit us at ProGuides.com, where our top-ranked players are more than happy to bring you up to speed with anything Valorant. Just click the link in the description if you're interested, and let's keep going. So let's go over a couple more important things about the game. Firstly, there's the spike. We already talked about it a bit, but it's time to go a bit more in depth. Rounds are 1 minute and 40 seconds long, and before the round ends, the attacker team will have to plant the spike in order to have a chance of winning the round. Spikes can only be planted on bomb sites. Then there's the designated planting area that'll light up if you're carrying the spike, like shown here. Planting the spike takes exactly 4 seconds, meaning you may need to start planting at least 4 seconds before time runs out or the defenders win. Then, a 45-second timer starts before the bomb explodes. The only way defenders can now prevent the attackers from winning is by defusing the spike before it explodes. Defusing it takes 7 seconds, but it does have a checkpoint at the halfway mark, meaning that if a player defuses for at least 3.5 seconds but does not defuse the spike completely, it'll now only take an additional 3.5 seconds to fully defuse. The latest possible time you can defuse a spike is also indicated. You can see this by the white circle indicator. This means there's only 7 seconds left to defuse, so if you're already defusing and you see the indicator, you have enough time. Another major part about Valorant is the economy. In Valorant's main game mode, you have to buy guns yourself, meaning that you need to make wise economic decisions in order to be able to afford the best gear. The first round of each half, so the first round on either side, is always a pistol round, where everyone will be forced to use a pistol. Players only get 800 credits, and this allows them to buy either an upgraded pistol, utility, shields, or a combination of both. A better gun is obviously better in order to have a better chance of winning raw aim duels, while utility can allow you to take better fights, and shields are essentially extra health. There's 2 types, light shields and heavy shields. Light shields being an extra 25 health, and heavy being an extra 50. The 2 most important things to know for economy are that you 1, generally always want to buy together with your team in order to have the best chance of winning the round, and 2, you want to maximize your rounds with strong gear by sometimes choosing to spend less on one round, in order to be able to afford more on the next. This tactic is called ecoing, and it's basically saving credits in a certain round to be able to have a good buy in the following round. You can do this by looking at the buy menu and paying attention to the min next round text. Here, it'll showcase the minimum credits you'll have in the following rounds regardless of what happens. Remember that you need to have 4,500 credits to buy fully with most agents, but of course that also depends on how expensive your abilities are, and whether or not you used abilities in the previous round. You'll get more familiar with the economy over time, but for now, aiming for 4,500 credits minimum the next round if your team can't fully buy in the current one is always a pretty good idea. So what do we mean with a good buy? Well, we mean that you're able to purchase the best guns and most or even all of your abilities together with a heavy shield. The best 3 guns in the game are the Operator, an amazing one-shot kill sniper rifle, the Vandal, a great rifle especially suited for mid to long range, and the Phantom, the best rifle in the game anywhere but long range. Generally on defense, you want to have 1 Operator with 4 rifles. And on attack, you want to do the same or instead 5 rifles depending on your preferences. For the rifles, you want to focus on shooting your short accurate bursts of 2 to 4 bullets in order to be the most accurate. And at a close range, you can also spray if it's what you prefer. While using the Operator, you of course want to focus on being clean and slow. Missing shots with the bolt action sniper is a lot more punishing as it's going to be a while before you get your next shot in. So taking a little extra time to make sure you really hit is definitely something to be frowned upon. Of course, these tips were very general. So if you want to know more about the rifles, we have guides for all 3 of these guns. So you can definitely learn more by looking at the rest of our channel. So let's get started about agents and their abilities. Each agent has 3 basic abilities and an ultimate. One is a signature ability, meaning that the agent gets at least 1 of them for free, and the other 2 can be bought in the shop. The ultimate cannot be bought, but rather requires anywhere from 6 to 8 ultimate points. Ultimate points can be rewarded in a multitude of ways. The simplest way is by getting a kill or dying. Dying or getting a kill rewards the player with 1 ultimate point. So if a player gets 3 kills in a round and then dies, they in total get 4 ultimate points. Another way an ultimate point can be received is by planting or defusing a spike. And lastly, by picking up ultimate orbs which are spawned on fixed spots on the map each round. On every map but one, there's 2 spots where the ultimate orbs are spawned, but Fracture, which we'll talk about later, is an exception with 4 ultimate orbs ready to be collected each round. Although note, these ultimate orbs disappear after a round is won or the spike is planted. Additionally, it is important to realize that if you have enough ultimate points in order to use your ultimate, you stop saving up ultimate points even if you collect orbs, kill people, or plant the spike. At that point, ultimate points wise, it's pretty pointless. So saving your ultimate for the best possible scenario isn't always great as it can stop you from using your ultimate multiple times in a half. Okay, so each agent has different abilities and different roles. So let's go over all the agents role by role, starting with the Duelists. The Duelist role is one that's most popular. People enjoy playing Duelists. As the name implies, they're best suited for finding duels and taking 1v1s. They, for the most part, have pretty self-sufficient kits and selfish abilities that allow them to thrive in 1v1s and win duels more easily. In a team, Duelists are expected to find openings for the team by getting picks and go looking for 1v1s. On site takes and retakes, they're generally expected to go in first. But if you have multiple Duelists or perhaps don't have the best Duelist to entry, that might not always be the most effective way to play. The Duelist role fields the most agents. Firstly, there's Jet. Jet is a staple of the meta as she is currently the best agent to wield the Operator because of her signature dash ability that allows her to quickly dash forward, backwards, and sideways. On top of that, she also has an ability that effectively allows her to dash upwards. She has a short duration smoke that she can throw on the fly, and her ultimate is 100% accurate weapon even while moving or jumping. On top of that, Jet is currently the only agent with the passive allowing her to hover in the air by holding down her jump key. Phoenix is another Duelist that has a signature molly that can either heal him or hurt his enemies and allies. He also has a small wall that he can curve any way he likes, and he has 2 flashes. His ultimate is quite cheap at 6 points and allows him to walk out of his body and be able to run anywhere he likes for 10 seconds after he teleports back. If he dies while using his ultimate, he also teleports back and stays alive, although he does lose his shields. This ultimate is thus great for entering bomb sites first, as dying isn't a big deal. Neon is the newest agent in the game, at least currently, and she has her signature E which allows her to sprint and slide once every 2 kills. She also has a bouncing grenade that stuns twice and essentially 2 Phoenix walls combined, making it kind of like a new lane entrance. Another powerful entry tool. Her ultimate is a laser beam that does a whole load of damage at close range and is used in combination with her sprint. Raze is another Duelist that has a signature grenade which does a lot of damage. She has 2 blast packs that allow her to blow up sage walls, do damage to opponents, or send herself flying. And she also has a robot that can clear buildings for her as it detects and blows up enemies unless they shoot it. Her ultimate is a bazooka which can one-shot kill and has great synergy with her blast packs. Reyna is another Duelist that has an interesting kit that allows her to heal or go shortly invulnerable after kills. Additionally, she has a flash which needs to be shot in order to be effectively dealt with. Her ultimate buffs her 2 signature abilities, allowing her to heal automatically and making her dismiss not only invulnerable but also invisible. On top of that, she has unlimited orbs and shoots faster. Lastly, we have Yoru. He has a signature teleport ability which he can use to teleport or fake teleport. He has a clone that runs forwards and flashes opponents when shot, and on top of that he has flashbangs. His ultimate allows him to go invisible and invincible, and he can exit anywhere he likes, plus he can use utility while in it. If Duelist is something for you, we highly recommend that you start out with either Raze or Reyna as both have very easy to understand kits and definitely aren't bad. But if you want to play the best of the bunch, you could always decide to play Jett, although playing her properly might prove to be a bit more difficult. The next role we should mention is that of the Initiators. Initiators are essentially the role that has the best directly supportive kits, and they generally have pretty good synergy with the Duelists in order to get picks. Basically, they're what allows other teammates to thrive, but a lot of them have utility that can allow them to play off themselves. The first agent under this category is Sova. Sova has been a staple of the Initiator role ever since the beta began for the game. There hasn't been a single patch where Sova hasn't been meta, and he's always been consistently good. His signature ability is a recharging recon arrow that scans through surroundings whenever it lands and highlights enemies it spots. He also has shock darts, which are used the same way as the recon dart, except they deal damage whenever it lands. Lastly, he has an owl drone, which can also tag enemies to highlight them and is used as a supportive entry tool. His ultimate allows him to send 3 massive shots through walls or any structure, which is great for after plants or to kill players that are highlighted or stuck in a corner. Skye is another Initiator that has a very supportive side, but she also can be self-sufficient. The reason for that are her signature flashes. She gets a cue as to when she flashes an opponent in order for it to be an information gain, but they're also potent kill flashes, which are best used for teammates, but she can also use them for herself. On top of that, she has a tiger, a bit like Sova's drone but on the ground instead, and she has a heal for anyone but herself. Her ultimate scouts out the 3 nearest enemies and sends a seeker towards them. Breach is similar to Skye. His signature is a recharging stun, but he also has flashes and he also has a damage dealing ability that clears corners. His flashes are best used for teammates, but they can be used for himself. His ultimate stuns and sends people flying in a large radius, making it a great entry tool. KO is the last Initiator, and he has a signature knife that he can throw to disable abilities and disallow anyone from using new ones if they're in range. On top of that, he also has flashes and a molly. His ultimate disables people around him in a fairly large range, and it allows him to get downed instead of dying instantly whenever he dies. On top of that, he also fires a bit faster, another useful ultimate to entry onto sites. For Initiators, we highly recommend playing Sova. He has always been good in the meta and he is a great agent to learn what Initiators are all about. He is a must pick on many maps, and his only weak maps are Split and Fracture. Overall, he's a great pick. Next on the list are the Controllers. These are smoke-wielding agents that are able to change the way people play around sites by smoking off many angles or blocking sightlines. The first agent in this list is Astra. She has 4 stars that she can place anywhere on the map, and then she can transform these stars into smoke, stuns, or sucks depending on what she sees fit. And don't worry if you misplace, you can always take these stars back and replace them later. Her ultimate effectively splits the map in 2 as it's a huge wall that you cannot see, shoot, or hear through. The next one is Viper. She has a signature wall that she can essentially split a site into 2. And on top of that, she also has a smoke and 2 mollies. These can also be used in synergy in order to stall diffuses by playing back with lineups for the plant spot, although this is somewhat advanced. Her ultimate is very strong as it basically allows her to fill an entire bomb site with toxic smoke, which makes people lose vision and health if they enter. Players won't die, but they will go all the way down to 1 HP, and it's easier for you to spot opponents in your ultimate than it is for them to spot you. Then we have Brimstone. He can use his 3 smokes all at once to really set up a site take. His smokes last the longest in the game and they have the advantage of not being hollow. He also has a molly and quite a potent one at that. Plus he has 2 stim beacons which allows any teammate standing near them to shoot faster and even move faster now. This ability used to be mediocre at best, but ever since the speed boost got added to it, it has become one of the best abilities in the game. His ultimate does a lot of damage in a small zone, so it allows him to either play after plant or kill people stuck in a corner. Lastly, we have Omen. Omen is able to smoke a lot further than Brimstone can, but he is slow to place multiple smokes as he needs to be doing them one by one, and he also only has 2 at a time. On the plus side, his smokes do recharge. He also has a flash and he has 2 short-range teleports. His ultimate, however, is a teleport where he can go anywhere on the map he wants to, or he can cancel it if he regrets his choice. He can't even use his ultimate to pick up the spike and plant somewhere else entirely. For controllers, we'd recommend playing Brimstone. He's probably the easiest smoker to play and he adds so much value to the team with his stim packs. Viper is very important on some maps as well, but she's a lot harder to play and thus we don't really recommend her to newer players. For the final role, we have the Sentinels, which are experts at holding areas of the map. They have good stalling utility and they make pushing sites very difficult. The first Sentinel we'll talk about is Sage. Although generally she isn't considered to be a really good one, Sage is a good agent. She has a good kit and really helps her team. But the Sentinel role for her isn't a perfect fit. Although she doesn't really fit anywhere, just consider her to be kind of role-less. Her signature ability is a recharging heal that can heal up to 60 health. And she also has a wall that allows her to block an entrance, although it can be broken quite rapidly. And she also has a slow orb, which makes entering a bomb site quite annoying as you'll be walking very slowly. As you can tell, these 2 abilities are what make her a Sentinel, but they're not really as strong as the other Sentinel utility in the game. And lastly, her ultimate is a revive, which she can use to resurrect a fallen ally, one of the best ultimates in the game hands down. The first real sentinel is Cypher. He has a signature camera which he can use to hold angles for information without the risk of dying. He also has 2 trips which he can use to slow down and kill anyone trying to enter a bomb site or angle. Lastly, he has cages, which are a bit like smokes except he needs to be close to the angle he wants to place them. These are great to get out of angles, using them as smokes, but they can also be comboed up with his tripwires in order to kill people safely through a cage while they light up due to his trip. His ultimate needs the body of a recently fallen foe, but if he finds one, he can then use it to reveal the other enemies remaining on the map. A pretty good ultimate in case you need to really figure out where your opponents are. Then we have Killjoy. Her signature ability is a turret which any opponents it may spot it does a small amounts of damage to. More importantly though, it slows and tags them substantially, which makes it a major annoyance. She also has Molotovs that can be pre-placed and activated at any time, which synergizes greatly with her alarm bot that attacks and temporarily doubles the damage on enemies it spots. Generally, you put your alarm bot close to your mollies and if someone walks through them, you can kill them quickly or at least do massive damage. Entering a site that Killjoy is holding should usually be pretty painful already, but then she also has a really strong ultimate, her lockdown. Killjoy's ultimate when placed forces enemies to leave the area within 13 seconds or else they get detained for 8, meaning that they're not able to use their weapons, they walk slowly and thus they are easy prey. A great ultimate either for taking or site retakes. Lastly, we have Chamber. Chamber is an interesting sentinel, but a strong one nonetheless. His signature ability allows him to teleport from one place to another, which either helps him rotate easier, go for aggressive peeks, or do weird teleport plays to catch opponents off guard. He also has trips that scans like Killjoy's alarm bot, but instead slows opponents and alerts Chamber to when they go off. His other ability is essentially a better version of the Sheriff, except it can only have up to 8 bullets. And his ultimate is a better version of the Operator that also has these slow fields whenever he kills a player. For Sentinels, we recommend playing Killjoy. She is a great agent to get started with and she has a great kit that won't hold you back. Your agent comp in Valorant definitely doesn't matter too much when you're playing not in the highest of ranks, but as a general tip, try to have one of each role at least, as that's what's probably the easiest way to play the game. Alright, with agents out of the way, it's time to quickly go over the other maps. Currently there are 7, and all of them have something that's unique to them. Split initially was unique for the fact that it had ropes that you could go up and down, but nowadays Icebox and Fracture have them too, so it's more unique for the fact that everything is so close range. Split is a map where mid control is super important, and having a lot of your team's resources there is the name of the game. Next up is Bind. Bind is unique for the teleporters it has from A short to B mid and B long to A showers, which allows attackers to fake and rotate quickly through them. Everything here is also very close range. It usually ends up being fairly defender-sided, so if you have a bad attacker half, stay in the game as your opponents might run into the same problems. Haven is another map that is quite unique, except this time for the fact that it doesn't have 1, not 2, but 3 bomb sites, all of which play very differently. Haven is definitely the map that is the most unique for the fact that it has 3 bomb sites, but honestly, a lot of the time, B is ignored, so it doesn't really matter anyway. Ascent is a community favorite map that is unique for its closing doors both on B market and A tree. It has a very important mid section which really offers a lot of control, making it an important hold for both attackers and defenders. Icebox is a map that is unique for its zip lines, but it also plays very interestingly. Viper on this map is pretty much a must pick both on A and B sites, and it's pretty difficult to play at a very high level. Breeze is unique for the trapdoor it has in the tube, but perhaps more importantly because it's so open. It being extremely open again means that Viper is more important, although without it you can work through mid, tube, and elbow and split all around the map to make site takes easier. Lastly, we have Fracture, another very unique map, but this time because the attackers can come from both sites and the defenders spawn in the middle. At first it might feel really weird to play, but it actually kind of works and makes it quite a fun map to play. Well guys, that's gonna wrap it up. Good to see you stuck along all the way to the end, and hopefully we answered all of your questions. If you have any left, make sure to comment them down below and we'll go over them there, or in future videos. Thanks for watching and make sure to subscribe and we'll see you in the next one.